Welcome to the Investing Mastermind Podcast. You're listening to Michelle Markey because Signe Loneholt, the co-host of this podcast, was away at the Berkshire Hathaway Annual Meeting that happened on Saturday, May 4th, 2024. So we had a different episode originally planned for this Tuesday, but because the meeting just happened and I had a few reflections, I figured I'd share a few of them ahead of when Sienna and I debrief on what we thought of what Warren Buffett and the gang said at this year's Berkshire meeting. And some of my thoughts that came to mind was it was quite surprising to hear that Berkshire had reduced its Apple stake by something like 13% in favor of having more cash. And one of the thoughts that I wondered about is could that be because Berkshire's trying to offset some of the capital losses they experienced with Paramount in something that Buffett said was 100% his decision to buy and sell Paramount? So, could there be some capital gains they're using to offset capital losses with Apple having the gains and Paramount having the losses for Berkshire? So, that'd be an interesting approach if Berkshire's doing some kind of tax loss harvesting, or there's other speculation that Apple could be too expensive of a stock right now. Maybe that's why Berkshire is not feeling like they want to hold on to as much and they'd rather have cash, which is an interesting thought because you would think Apple should be doing well, whether we have a recession or not, and no matter what the state of the economy is in. And yet, it's as if Berkshire would rather somewhat de risk by having cash. So I think that's a bit of an interesting take that I'm sure Sienna and I will get more into. And also, it makes me wonder what Berkshire is doing with the upwards of 182 to 189 billion dollars from some reports I've heard. Could they be putting a lot of that in US Treasury bonds in the meantime until they find better buying opportunities? Like, let's say, if a financial crisis comes around again, because Buffett has been talking a lot about the 2008 great financial crisis, both in the annual meeting and in his annual letter this year. So it makes me wonder what could Buffett be getting ready for? Is there a storm that could then have some significant stock market or whole company buying opportunities for Berkshire? So definitely something that I wonder how Tim Cook feels about this sort of conservative move that Berkshire would rather have more cash than hold on to more Apple stock. That's a bit of a juxtaposition. And also, it was nice that Buffett remembered Charlie a lot. Like there was one time in a funny moment where he turned to Greg Abel, his successor in the future CEO of Berkshire, and he said, "What do you think, Charlie?" And he turned toward Greg, and clearly Charlie wasn't there anymore, sadly, but we had Greg answer. And I just think that if we would have still had Charlie this year, I'm sure Charlie would have said a lot of nothing to add, but it's nice that Greg Abel came in and answered a lot. And we basically know that Greg Abel is going to be the future capital allocator, as that's the job that Buffett believes should rest with the CEO. So naturally, it makes sense that Greg Abel will be the future chief capital allocator of Berkshire Hathaway, as well as a moral of the story. I found a really good thing to take away from the meeting was how Buffett said something like, you can be kind whether you're rich or poor, which is something not a lot of rich people do. And I think that's really important of what kind of legacy do we want to leave behind in the world. So I think that for Buffett's moral of the general advice story he gives people is to be kind. I think that can go a long way. And so, I think the force of Charlie Munger was felt on this May 4th that we kind of joke is kind of like may the force be with you, sort of like a bit of a riff on that Star Wars theme. But really, I do feel like Charlie Munger was missed at this meeting, and I'm wondering what Cena felt at the meeting, like how it was different. And I know Buffett honored Charlie by only having the Poor Charlie's Almanac be sold at the annual meeting this year. So it'd be interesting to see what the actual attendees felt about this year's meeting, being that it was unlike many others before this year. And it'll be cool to see, what people took away from the meeting. If you have thoughts that you'd like to share, feel free to share those with Sina and I, however you might find us, like on Instagram, on Investing Mastermind Podcast or through our individual Instagrams or even through my YouTube channel. If you want to comment on my video about how to attend Berkshire Hathaway, I'm sure many of you listened to that or watched that video, and hopefully that helped you to attend the Berkshire meeting if that's what you did. I mean, either way, I'd love to hear from you, whatever way you want to communicate with us. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts of what you took away from the Berkshire Hathaway meeting. And with that, I'll wrap it up for today, and we'll be back on Tuesday. Till next time.
If you enjoyed the show and found the content informational, we would be super grateful if you would leave us a review and follow us wherever you get your podcasts so you automatically get new episodes in your feed. We publish a new show every Tuesday.
The contents of the Investing Mastermind podcast are for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only. None of this is investing advice, and if you need help in your personal situation, please consult with a professional.